Emily's fear was palpable, stalked by a classmate's twisted obsession. I helped her fight, exposing his creepy texts. We had him cornered with undeniable proof, but an anonymous lie turned my world upside down, and a hidden enemy sent one final threat. I'm a psychology professor at the University of Washington in Seattle. My days are filled with lectures, grading papers, and guiding students through the maze of human behavior. Most of my students are eager, curious, but one stood out. Emily, a quiet, diligent sophomore. She always sat in the front row, scribbling notes, her eyes fixed on the board. But lately, I noticed her shrinking, her shoulders hunched, her gaze darting nervously. Something was wrong. It didn't take long to spot the cause. Jake, a cocky junior with a loud mouth, had zeroed in on her. He'd plop down next to Emily every class, ignoring the empty seats elsewhere. His jokes were cruel, laced with innuendo. He'd lean in too close, smirking, tossing out comments about her clothes or her nerdy vibe. Once, he laughed so loudly about her being secretly wild that her face turned red, and I saw tears well up. I pulled him aside after class, told him to cut it out. He just grinned, shrugged, and said, "Relax, prof. It's just fun." My gut twisted. This wasn't fun. Emily started arriving late, choosing seats in the back, but Jake always found her. I caught her wiping her eyes one day, and my heart sank. I asked if she was okay. She nodded quickly, avoiding my eyes, and mumbled, "I'm fine," but she wasn't. I started keeping a closer watch, noticing the way Jake's presence made her tense, like a deer ready to bolt. I debated reporting him myself, but without solid proof, I knew the university wouldn't act. Seattle's a big city, but campus politics are small and messy. I needed Emily to speak up. Then, I saw her phone light up during a break. She glanced at it, and her face paled. I leaned over, pretending to organize papers, and caught a glimpse of a text. "You looked cute today, Em. Bet you're wilder than you act." My stomach churned. It had to be Jake. I asked her quietly if she wanted to talk after class. She hesitated, then nodded, her hands trembling. When the room emptied, she showed me the texts. Dozens of them. Creepy, suggestive, sent from random numbers. "He won't stop," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I blocked him, but he just uses apps to keep texting." I felt a surge of anger. Jake wasn't just a jerk. He was relentless. I told Emily she could report him, that I'd back her up. Her eyes widened, scared. "What if they don't believe me?" she asked. I promised we'd figure it out together. She nodded, but the fear didn't leave her face. I knew this was bigger than a classroom issue now. Jake's behavior was crossing lines, and Emily was paying the price. I couldn't let it slide, not as her professor, not as someone who knew right from wrong, but I had no idea how far this would spiral, how it would drag me into a nightmare I never saw coming. The next week, tension hung heavy in my classroom at the University of Washington. Emily's usual spark was gone, replaced by a tight-lipped silence. Jake, as always, swaggered in, dropping into the seat next to her. I saw her flinch, her hands gripping her notebook. I was about to start the lecture when Jake leaned over, whispering something that made Emily's face twist. Her eyes flashed with something new anger. Before I could intervene, she stood up, her voice cutting through the room like a knife. "Stop it, Jake. Just shut up." The class froze. Jake smirked, unfazed. "Oh, Em, getting feisty? I like that. Bet I could handle you." His tone was slimy, dripping with arrogance. The room gasped. Emily's hands shook, but she didn't back down. In a flash, she grabbed her 450-page psychology textbook from the desk, raised it high, and slammed it down on Jake's head. Hard. Then again. The crack echoed like a gunshot. Jake yelped, clutching his face as blood trickled from his nose. He stumbled out of the room, muttering curses, leaving a stunned silence behind. I ended the lecture early, my heart pounding. "Everyone, class dismissed. Emily, stay back, please." The other students shuffled out, whispering, stealing glances at her. Emily sat, shaking, her face pale but defiant. I closed the door and sat across from her. "What happened?" I asked gently. Her eyes filled with tears as she spilled everything. Jake's harassment wasn't just in class. He'd been bombarding her with texts, crude, suggestive, sometimes explicit. She showed me her phone. Messages like, "You can't ignore me forever, Em," and worse, photos with his face cropped out but clearly from him. She'd blocked his number weeks ago, but he kept using burner apps, new numbers popping up daily. "I couldn't take it anymore," she whispered, her voice breaking. He wouldn't stop. My blood boiled. This wasn't just bullying, it was obsessive. I told her she had every right to report him, and that I'd help her gather proof. She nodded, but her voice trembled. "What if they think I'm lying? He's got friends everywhere." I promised we'd make her case airtight. She handed over screenshots of the texts, her hands still shaking. I felt a surge of protectiveness. Emily was a good kid, and Jake was making her life hell. I wasn't going to let him win. But before we could act, Jake struck first. The next day, I got a call from the dean's office. Jake had filed a formal complaint against Emily, claiming she'd attacked him unprovoked, caused a concussion, and left him unable to focus on his studies. He was pushing for her expulsion, painting himself as the victim. My jaw clenched. He'd twisted the story, leaving out his months of harassment. Emily was called in to explain, but the administration seemed skeptical, leaning toward Jake's version. They mentioned zero tolerance for violence and serious consequences. I could see Emily crumbling under the pressure, her eyes red from crying. I wasn't about to let her face this alone. I told her to keep collecting evidence every text, every screenshot, every detail. She nodded, determination flickering in her eyes. I felt a mix of pride and dread. We were fighting an uphill battle, and Jake wasn't done playing dirty. Little did I know, his next move would pull me into the crossfire, threatening everything I'd worked for. The air felt heavier as I walked into the dean's office at the University of Washington. Just days after Jake's complaint against Emily, a bombshell dropped. An anonymous report claimed I was having an inappropriate relationship with Emily. My heart sank like a stone plummeting into a dark well. Me, a married man, a professor for over a decade, accused of something so vile? The words stung, sharp and surreal. The dean's face was grim as she slid a paper across her desk, detailing the accusation. I was being placed on temporary leave, effective immediately, while they investigated. My career, my reputation, everything I'd built, teetered on the edge. I drove home to our small house in Seattle's Fremont neighborhood, my hands gripping the steering wheel. My wife, Sarah, was in the kitchen when I told her. Her eyes widened, but she didn't hesitate. "They're wrong, David. We'll fight this." Her confidence steadied me, but inside, I was unraveling. Colleagues I'd known for years now whispered behind my back. Emails from the administration piled up, demanding access to my phone records, emails, everything. I handed it all over, knowing I'd done nothing wrong, but the doubt in their eyes gnawed at me. The investigators zeroed in on a few emails between me and Emily. One was about a group project. She'd asked if she could meet me after class to clarify a point about data analysis. She wrote, "I don't want to mess this up, Professor Miller. I'm nervous." I'd replied, "You're one of my best students, Emily. You've got this. Come by anytime." Out of context, it looked flirty to them. My stomach churned as they read it aloud, their voices cold, skeptical. Another email was worse. Emily had thanked me for a study guide, saying she'd start studying that night. I'd written back, "Students like you make teaching worth it. Keep shining." They called it overly familiar. I wanted to scream. This was how I talked to all my students, encouraging, supportive, but they weren't buying it. The meetings dragged on, each one a gauntlet. I sat in a stuffy conference room, explaining every word, every interaction. "I'm like this with everyone," I said, my voice tight. "Check my emails with other students." They nodded but didn't seem convinced. The accusation felt like a shadow, creeping into every corner of my life. Breaking the news to Sarah about the specifics was brutal. She held my hand, her eyes fierce. "We'll prove them wrong, David. You're a good man." Her trust was my lifeline, but the stress was suffocating. I barely slept, haunted by the thought of losing my job, my students, my purpose. Sarah took charge, digging through my emails like a detective. She found one I'd sent to a student named Mark, a 40-year-old vet in my class. I'd written, "Mark, your presentation was killer. Keep that up, and I might hire you as my TA." It was the same tone, the same encouragement. We printed it out, along with others, showing I treated everyone this way, male, female, young, old. I handed the stack to the investigators, my hands steady, but my heart racing. They skimmed through, their faces unreadable. "This doesn't directly address your interactions with Emily," one said. I clenched my fists under the table. It was like they wanted me to be guilty. Then, a new blow. Emily came to me, her face pale, saying Jake was still texting her, taunting her about the investigation. "He said I'd regret reporting him," she whispered, showing me a message. "You and your professor won't win this, Em." My blood ran cold. Jake wasn't just targeting her, he was coming for me too. I told Emily to save everything, that we'd use it to bury him, but the accusation against me was a ticking bomb, and time was running out. I needed to clear my name before Jake's lies destroyed us both. The weeks dragged on, each day a battle to clear my name at the University of Washington. The accusation of an inappropriate relationship with Emily hung over me like a storm cloud, threatening to ruin everything. But Emily's fight was far from over too. Jake's harassment didn't stop, even with the investigation in full swing. One afternoon, Emily came to my office, her face pale, her hands trembling as she handed me her phone. "He's still texting me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I read the latest message. "You can't hide forever, Em. I miss that lavender scent you wear." My stomach twisted. It wasn't just creepy, it was obsessive. He'd mentioned her exact perfume, bought from a store in downtown Seattle. Another text chilled me to the bone. "I spray it on my pillow every night imagining you're here." I handed the phone back, my jaw tight. "This isn't just harassment, Emily. It's stalking." She nodded, tears brimming. "I feel like he's everywhere," she said, her voice cracking. I reassured her we'd make the administration listen, but inside, I was raging. Jake wasn't just tormenting her, he was taunting me too, with that anonymous report. I told Emily to save every text, every photo, no matter how small. She agreed, her eyes flickering with determination. We were in this together now, and I wasn't about to let Jake win. Sarah, my wife, was a godsend. She spent hours combing through my emails, pulling together proof that my interactions with Emily were professional. She found more messages to other students, Mark, Lisa, even a freshman named Tom, where I used the same encouraging tone. "You're killing it," I'd written to Tom after a solid presentation. "Keep it up, and you'll ace this class." Sarah stacked the emails neatly, her hands steady as she said, "This shows who you are, David. They'll see." I nodded, but the knot in my chest didn't loosen. The investigators were tough, their skepticism like a wall I couldn't break through. Emily, meanwhile, was gathering her own evidence. She'd She'd collected screenshots of every text from Jake, hundreds of them, from his real number and the burner apps. Some were vile, describing things he wanted to do, his words dripping with entitlement. Others were photos, his face cropped out but his body unmistakable. One caught my eye, a picture of his hand, a small crescent-shaped birthmark visible on his right knuckle. I froze. Emily, does Jake have this mark in person? I asked. She nodded, her eyes wide. If we can match this, it's undeniable proof, I said. She agreed, her voice steadier now. We had something solid. Then Emily dropped a bombshell. My friend recorded something, she said, pulling out her phone. She played a video, grainy but clear enough. It showed Jake trailing her across the quad, his hoodie pulled up, his steps deliberate as he stayed just out of her sight. My blood ran cold. He wasn't just texting, he was following her, lurking like a predator. The video was gold, undeniable evidence of his obsession. I told Emily to include it in her report to the dean. This changes everything, I said, hoping I was right. We marched to the dean's office together, Emily clutching a folder stuffed with evidence, screenshots, witness statements from classmates who'd seen Jake's behavior, and now the video. I presented my own stack of emails, proving my interactions with Emily were no different from those with other students. The investigators leaned forward as Emily laid out her case. She showed the texts, starting with Jake's early jokes and escalating to explicit threats. She pointed out the birthmark in the photo, then played the video. The room went silent, the air thick with tension. One investigator finally spoke. "This is compelling," he said, his voice measured. The dean nodded, her face grim. "We'll need to verify the birthmark," she said, "but this paints a clear picture." Emily's shoulders relaxed, just a fraction, but I could see the weight lifting. The investigators confirmed Jake's birthmark matched the photo. The video sealed it. His behavior wasn't just inappropriate, it was dangerous. They concluded Emily's act of hitting him was self-defense, provoked by months of relentless harassment. My own case was cleared, too. The emails Sarah compiled showed I treated all my students the same, supportive, professional, nothing more. I felt a rush of relief, but my focus stayed on Emily. She'd fought hard, and now, finally, the truth was breaking through. But Jake wasn't done yet, and I braced myself for what he might try next. Relief washed over me like a Seattle rain when the dean called to say I was cleared. The University of Washington's investigation found no evidence of wrongdoing on my part. My emails, thanks to Sarah's relentless work, proved I treated Emily no differently than any other student. I could return to teaching, my reputation intact, but the victory felt hollow while Emily's fight lingered. She'd faced Jake's harassment for months, and now, with the truth laid bare, it was her turn for justice. Emily sat across from me in my office, her folder of evidence now a weapon. The investigators had reviewed everything: the vile texts, the photos with Jake's telltale birthmark, the video of him stalking her across the quad. The dean's face was stern as she delivered the verdict. Jake would be under strict supervision, banned from contacting Emily, and required to attend mandatory counseling. Any violation meant expulsion. Emily's act of slamming the textbook on his head was ruled self-defense, provoked by his relentless torment. She was cleared of all charges, and the university promised to ensure her safety on campus, assigning a counselor to check in weekly. I watched Emily's face as the dean spoke. Her eyes glistened, but she held her chin high, a flicker of her old strength returning. "Thank you, Professor Miller," she said as we left the office, her voice soft but steady. "I couldn't have done this without you." I smiled, my chest tight with pride. "You did the hard part, Emily. You stood up to him." She nodded, a small smile breaking through, and for the first time in weeks, I saw hope in her eyes. Back in the classroom, the air felt lighter. My students greeted me with warm smiles, some even clapping as I walked in. Word had spread about the investigation, and their support meant everything. Emily was there, front row again, her notebook open, her pen ready. She wasn't hiding anymore. I launched into my lecture on cognitive biases, but my mind kept drifting to her resilience. She'd faced a nightmare and come out stronger. The semester rolled on, and Emily threw herself into her work. She asked sharp questions, turned in assignments early, and aced every quiz. When I handed back the final exams, her paper was on top, a bold A in red ink. She took it, her breath catching, then smiled a real, unburdened smile. "I did it," she whispered, more to herself than to me. I nodded, my throat tight. "You sure did." Helping Emily wasn't just about justice, it was personal. I'd seen too many students struggle in silence, and I'd vowed long ago to be more than just a lecturer. My role was to teach, yes, but also to protect, to listen, to stand up when things went wrong. This ordeal tested that vow. The accusations against me had shaken my confidence, made me question if I'd overstepped by getting involved. But seeing Emily safe, thriving, reminded me why I'd fought so hard. Jake faded into the background, his presence on campus muted by the university's restrictions. I heard he'd dropped my class, and rumors swirled he was transferring to a community college in Portland. Good riddance. Emily and I kept things professional, our conversations limited to coursework, but there was a quiet understanding between us. We'd been through a war together, and we'd both come out scarred but standing. As I locked my office on the last day of the semester, I felt a weight lift. The Seattle skyline glowed outside my window, the Space Needle piercing entering the dusk. I thought of Sarah, waiting at home with her unwavering faith in me. I thought of Emily, who'd found her voice and her strength. This wasn't just about clearing our names, it was about proving that truth could win, even when the odds felt stacked against us. I walked to my car, my steps lighter, ready to face the next chapter, knowing I'd done right by my student and myself. As I sat in my office at the University of Washington, the semester behind me, I stared at the stack of graded exams on my desk. The quiet was soothing, a stark contrast to the chaos of the past months. Emily's fight, Jake's harassment, the false accusation against me, it all felt like a storm that had finally passed. The Seattle skyline shimmered outside, the Space Needle a steady beacon in the dusk. I leaned back, letting the weight of it all sink in. I'd come so close to losing everything, my job, my reputation, my peace, but I'd made it through, and so had Emily. Sarah was my rock. Her belief in me never wavered, even when I doubted myself. Late nights, poring over emails, her hand on mine as we faced the unknown, she was my anchor. Telling her about the accusation was the hardest thing I'd ever done. I'd braced for her to question me, to wonder if there was truth in the lies, but she didn't. "I know you, David," she'd said, her voice fierce. "You're not that man." Those words carried me through the endless meetings, the skeptical glares, the sleepless nights. Without her, I might have crumbled. Emily's courage stayed with me too. That shy girl who once shrank in her seat had found her voice. She faced Jake's torment, stood up to him, and fought for justice when the system seemed stacked against her. Seeing her in class, head high, asking questions with that spark in her eyes, filled me with pride. She'd aced the semester, her A, a testament to her strength. I'd helped her, sure, but she'd saved herself. That folder of evidence, the video, her unwavering resolve, it was all her. This ordeal changed me. I'd always seen teaching as my calling, but I hadn't realized how far it extended. It wasn't just about lectures or grades. It was about standing up for what's right, even when it's messy. Helping Emily meant risking my career, but I'd do it again. Her safety, her dignity, mattered more than my comfort. I thought of the other students I'd taught, the ones who might have needed me but stayed silent. I vowed to be more vigilant, to listen harder, to act faster. As I locked my office and walked to my car, the cool Seattle air brushed my face. I felt lighter, like I'd shed a heavy coat. Emily was safe, thriving. Jake was gone, his shadow no longer looming. Sarah was waiting at home, probably with a glass of wine and that knowing smile. This chapter was over, but it left me with a renewed sense of purpose. Teaching was my job, but protecting my students was my duty. I'd fought for Emily, for truth, and I'd won. That was enough.